Hi, my name's Lucas. I'm a stock assessment scientist with Fisheries Queensland, part of the Department of Primary Industries, and I'm one of the authors on the recent 2025 stock assessment of Australian East Coast Spanish mackerel. Today, I'm going to take you through the 2025 stock assessment, giving you an overview of the process, the results, and a couple of the key differences from last time. We've included chapters in this video to help you navigate to any particular areas of interest. You can find them by hovering your cursor over the video timeline at the bottom, and you can pause and revisit these sections as often as you might like. I would like to respectfully acknowledge Aboriginal people and Torres Strait Islander people as the traditional custodians of the land on which this video was recorded, and I pay my respects to their elders past and present. I extend this respect to any Aboriginal people and Torres Strait Islander people who may be listening to this video. This video was recorded on beautiful Gimoi Walabara Yidinji country. Since the previous assessment in 2021, it's been a long journey and a lot of work has gone into delivering the current 2025 stock assessment. 2 independent reviews were carried out on the previous assessment, one by Dr. Neil Clare in 2021 and another by Dr. Simon Hoyle and Alastair Dunn in 2023. In addition, there's been new research carried out into East Coast Spanish mackerel since the 2021 assessment to fill knowledge gaps identified last time. A lot of things have changed since the 2021 stock assessment, not just to do with our assessment methods, but also to do with the project governance, the stock assessment process, the data that were available to us, and the way that the results were presented. I'll explain each of these now. Firstly, this assessment was capably guided by a project team that met 5 times over the course of the assessment. This time around, new members were added to the project team. These included commercial and recreational fishers as fishing industry representatives, Dr. Simon Hoyle as an independent scientist, and a representative from the Great Barrier Reef Marine Park Authority. This ensured that the assessment was guided by a diverse group of subject matter experts who had a really extensive knowledge base around East Coast Spanish mackerel. Secondly, we made changes to our methods to address the recommendations of the independent reviews of the previous stock assessment. The full list of methodology changes is long, so here I'll just take you through the key areas of improvement. The independent reviews recommended that we improve the way we handle hyperstability and catch rates. Catch rates are an important data set to the model, and they tell us about the way the fish populations are tracking over time. So what's hyperstability then? Hyperstability refers to the potential for catch rates to remain stable and flat, while the underlying population might actually be increasing or decreasing. This has the potential to mask the true underlying trend in the population from the model. Hyperstability is pretty common in species that aggregate, or gather, to spawn, and Spanish mackerel do aggregate to spawn. This is pretty well known by fishers, and it can be seen in the way that the fishery has been centered around these aggregations for decades. To better explain how this works, let's take our example fisher below, and let's say that the inner circle represents a successful day's fishing for a commercial fisher. The fisher goes out, has a successful day's fishing, and takes home a good catch of Spanish mackerel. Over time, we can see that the fish is able to repeat this successful daily catch rate, but we can also see that the overall size of the school or aggregation is decreasing. The fisher reports these daily catches in the logbooks, and as the stock assessment modeler, we see this. As you can see, this catch rate is flat and it's stable. And this is likely because hyperstability is masking any changes happening in the underlying population. Normally, a stock assessment uses catch rates as what's called an index of abundance, meaning that the trend in the catch rates tell us about the trend in the population. In a stock that shows hyperstability though, catch rates are not a reliable index of abundance, and it's up to the stock assessment modelers to focus on more reliable data sets to tell us about what the population is doing. The independent reviews also suggested that we improve the model's fit to our age at length data. The previous 2021 stock assessment prioritised fitting closely to catch rates, and this compromised how well it fit to the age at length data. Unlike the catch rate time series I showed you just before, you can see that there's been a significant increase in the mean age of fish over the last 20 years. And this is suggestive of some degree of rebuild in the population. These age at length data collected by Fisheries Queensland are a more reliable data set to fit to. We have a lot of data over a long period of time, and these data sets are more robust to fishery dependent processes like selectivity and hyperstability. So to solve both our age data fits and concerns around hyperstability, we built the model to fit more closely to the age at length data and less closely to the catch rate data. And this allowed the model the freedom to prioritize trends in the age at length data. We also reviewed the chosen values for steepness. Steepness describes the relationship between the size of a fish population and the number of new fish recruited to that population each year. Stocks with high steepness are generally more resilient and more able to recover from depletion. Steepness is an important parameter for all stock assessments, but because it's not something we can directly measure, it's notoriously difficult to estimate. So it's up to stock assessment scientists and project teams to decide on the most appropriate values for steepness based on available studies of the given family or species. As per the recommendations of the independent reviews, we modelled multiple values of steepness, and we used 0.69 as a central value. The structure of this population model was improved to better account for the migratory patterns of Spanish mackerel. Spanish mackerel participate in what's called a partial migration, where a lot of the fish will migrate to a few select reefs in the spawning grounds during the spawning season. This movement of fish causes changes in the availability and the size of fish that show up at certain latitudes in certain seasons. And while the previous 2021 stock assessment looked at these patterns in sizes and selectivity across Queensland's whole east coast, this assessment does it by season and by region to better capture the effects of this migration. These are just a few of the areas of improvement, but all the recommendations from the independent reviews are addressed, and you can see our full responses to these recommendations in the 2025 stock assessment report. Thirdly, new data were also available for use in the 2025 stock assessment. Our main data inputs were updated until June 2024, which meant that 4 more years were available for this assessment. Data on shark depredation rates were also made available for this stock assessment, courtesy of an FRDC-funded research project. This project also conducted satellite tagging work to provide information on post-release mortality rates. In addition, Fisheries Queensland conducted a phone survey of experienced commercial and recreational Spanish mackerel fishers to help inform us on the historical patterns in shark depredation and also on historical catch. Some of these fishers had over 50 years of on-water experience chasing Spanish mackerel, so this wealth of knowledge was definitely appreciated. Lastly, the results of this assessment represent the outcomes of multiple model scenarios, with no one scenario given preference over the others. This is referred to as the ensemble approach, and it differs from what the previous 2021 stock assessment did, which presented results on a base case, which is a preferred scenario chosen by project team members. The ensemble included 6 different plausible scenarios, and these scenarios included 3 different settings of steepness and 2 levels of emphasis placed on the age at length data relative to our other data sets. We also ran many other exploratory model scenarios before deciding upon the final ensemble, testing the influence of a range of factors upon Spanish mackerel biomass. Here are some of the influences that we trialled in these exploratory model scenarios. However, ultimately, they had a negligible impact upon both the final biomass results and the quality of our model fits. Still, we report on these model runs at length in the 2025 stock assessment report, and you can still see the results and outcomes of these runs in the appendix. Across all model scenarios in the ensemble, the most probable 2025 biomass estimate was 34% of unfished biomass, with a 95% confidence range of 17 to 62%. Now let's take a look at how we got to that number. We used a modelling framework called stock synthesis to produce results for our 6 model scenarios in the ensemble. From there, we ran an extra step of analysis to explore how certain in those results we are. This process is called an MCMC algorithm, or Markov chain Monte Carlo, and it reruns the model 2 million times in our case, each with slightly different conditions. This lets us understand how stable our model is, and it also gives us a more robust understanding of model predictions and precision. This means the results take into account all 6 of our model scenarios equally, and account for any uncertainty relating to modelling decisions. This also helps reduce the risk of model misspecification. Once we run all of those models, we collated all the 2025 biomass results produced by all model iterations, as shown by this orange band. Because we ran the model 2 million times across 6 scenarios, it means we have 12 million estimates of biomass at the beginning of 2025. Of course, having this much information doesn't exactly make for a good graph, but if we organise the data into larger groups, we see a curve starting to form. This curve summarises all of our 12 million biomass estimates at the beginning of 2025. 95% of all biomass estimates fell between 17 and 62% of unfished biomass. That's indicated by these vertical dashed lines. That means that there's a 95% probability that the current biomass falls within this range. The solid vertical line you can see indicates that the median biomass estimate is 34% of unfished biomass. This represents the most probable biomass estimate for 2025 for Australian East Coast Spanish mackerel across all model runs. The red shading shows that there's an 8% chance that the current biomass is below the limit reference point of 20% of unfished biomass, or B20. The yellow shading indicates that there is a 61% chance that the current biomass falls between 20 to 40% of unfished biomass. This is the highest probability shown by any of these coloured brackets. The blue shading indicates that there is a 28% chance that the current biomass falls between 40 and 60% of unfished biomass. And finally, the green shading shows that there is a 3% chance that the current biomass is greater than 60% of unfished biomass. From the extensive modelling and exploration prompted by the project team and the external reviews, we've made a couple of key findings about modelling this stock. Firstly, Spanish mackerel are prone to hyperstability, which can lead to potentially uninformative catch rates. But fortunately, we can develop a clearer picture of population trends by emphasising our robust age-at-length dataset, which we've prioritised for model fitting in this assessment. Secondly, the model was really responsive to the chosen values for the natural mortality parameter, which is the rate at which fish die due to causes other than fishing. The age data that we used in this assessment were sufficient to estimate natural mortality within the model, using estimates from the literature as a guide. Thirdly, a high steepness value alone does not necessarily result in a high biomass estimate, as steepness interacts closely with natural mortality. And finally, by adjusting the model structure to better account for the migration of Spanish mackerel, the model did a better job at estimating selectivity. Now, this work wouldn't have been possible without the expertise of the project team and without all of the fishers who have shared with us their knowledge and provided us with data. Future assessments should go on to build this collaboration between industry and government because our assessments are definitely stronger for it. Also, the recent research funded by the Fisheries Research and Development Corporation was invaluable and helped us to fill important knowledge gaps for this assessment. The assessment results and additional forecast modelling have been provided to the fishery management team, and they will conduct consultation with working groups to discuss any management arrangements going forward. And that's about all from me. A reminder that if you'd like any more information, there is a link provided to the 2025 stock assessment report in the video description down below. And if you have any questions, please feel free to ask us. Shoot us an email at fisheriesassessment@daf.qld.gov.au.